Let's see if this tool I designed works. Hang out. One of the most frustrating things that I've heard about people building these Triumph 4-speed gearboxes is indexing that transmission when it comes time for the final assembly. Well, there's many different techniques, many different sayings and manuals that tell you how to do this, but one thing is sure, it's not an easy process unless you've done it thousands of times, and most people watching these videos hopefully only have to do it one time, but me building these bikes, I do it a lot. So I developed this cool little tool, and I want to see today that if my prototype is going to work on this motorcycle, and if it does, then we're gonna go to market so everybody out there who works on these 4-speed transmissions can finally have a one and done remedy to indexing these things. So first thing we need to do is go ahead and get the gears in there set up just the way it should be, right by the manual, and then we will talk about how to index this transmission. So let's get the gears in. Alright, so first thing to note is that we already have updated our bushings, put new ones in there, a new bearing in the back. We went ahead and installed that final drive gear, put the seal in, got the sprocket on the other side, so everything's ready to be loaded on this side. Now, this is a unit construction 4-speed gearbox that we are putting into a pre-unit 1959 gearbox housing. That, to be noted, is that this shaft has a recessed end. You need to make sure that you use the pre-unit shaft because the hole in the back is smaller on these pre-units. With that being said, we can go ahead and start loading some gears in here, and I'm gonna do a voiceover as I talk about what I'm doing. So let's start loading these things in. The first thing to install is the index plunger spring, followed by the cam plate index plunger. Then install the gear selector cam plate and rotate it into the first gear position. Next, install the lay shaft complete with high gear. Then slide the lay shaft second gear followed by the lay shaft third gear into position. Place the lay shaft selector fork into position, ensuring the roller is seated into the cam plate. Next, join the main shaft second and third gears with the main shaft selector fork and sit into housing, aligning with the lay shaft gears and placing the roller into the cam plate. Then slide the selector fork rod through both selector forks and seat fully into the rear of the gearbox housing. Next, install the main shaft complete with low gear. Lastly, install the lay shaft low gear. Alright, now that we got all the gears in there, I just want to take a moment and talk about the gear selector cam plate. Now, this device is one of the crucial parts that comes to indexing this transmission. Each one of these little notches around here represents one of the gears, and they are indexed with the plunger. Now, as we installed this into the side of the gearbox like that, you guys notice that I put that notch right there down so that that plunger indicated on there. Well, with that, that is our first gear. So let me just go ahead and write down what each one of these little places represents. So just as you saw, each one of those represents a gear or a setting inside of this gearbox. Now, when we installed, we did install it with it in first gear. Now, utilizing our Weems Motor Co. gearbox indexing tool, we have made sure to annotate on the outside that you installed this when the bike is in neutral. So that means we've installed the gearbox in first gear. We need to rotate that gear selector cam plate so that we are sitting in neutral. So let's do that. All right, so rotating that gear selector cam plate so that the plunger is no longer in that first section, but in that first little divot sets us into the neutral position. The way to check that is to just grab this outside gear on the bottom, spin that, rotate it, and look around the other side and make sure that the main drive sprocket where the chain goes on is not rotating. And as we look, we know that we are good. Now we can move on to our inner cover where we actually utilize the tool. All right, on our inner gearbox cover, we have went ahead and replaced all of the bearings and the bushings. Everything's new on there. And you have this mechanism here that is called the cam plate operating quadrant. Now, this is what moves up and down and turns that cam plate on the inside, shifting the gears. So as we are sliding this in, you have to make sure that this stays in the proper position, indexing onto that cam plate back there. So on here, you notice there are a few teeth that goes up, and it just so happens that I went ahead and made a red mark on where this should be in correlation using our tool to index this gearbox into neutral. We've already set the inside to neutral. Now, as we're sliding this in, we need to make sure that this quadrant does not move and it does stay in the neutral position. So that's where the tool comes in. The tool slides right into where your shifter goes, and it goes straight across, and you want to make sure that the shaft going across is indexed into that notch that we have painted red. It's the second one up from the bottom, and that will hold, aligning up on our main shaft, sliding this thing in. So as you can tell, it can have a little operation up and down, but as you get it in about 1/4 of an inch from the gearbox housing, you want to make sure that that is lined up with our shifter hole and our main shaft on that second indent on the quadrant. So let's get this installed. Now, something to quickly note here is that we don't have a gasket back there. We don't have any gasket compound, and we haven't lubed anything on the inside of this. This is just for demonstration purposes on how this tool works. Now, once we get everything lined up, we can go ahead and remove our tool, and we should be able to turn that main shaft and look over on the other side and make sure that our sprocket for our chain drive isn't moving. So let's go check that out. And that's that. I mean, if we had gasket compound and everything ready, we would be ready to button this thing up and wrap it up. But that is our tool, and I'm super excited that it is a really handy tool, especially if you've ever had problems indexing these gearboxes. If you want to check out these and other cool parts and things, go over to our website, weemsmotorco.com. Grab yourself some t-shirts, stickers, things like that. And we got other parts for motorcycles too, so make sure you do that. But that's going to wrap up today's video. Easy, super sweet, using the Weems Motor Co. 4-speed Triumph gearbox indicating tool. Well, folks, thank you for hanging out. If you are new around here, jump down and hit that subscribe button. If you really like the video, hit that thumbs up, turn those notifications on, and let everyone know what's going on right here at Weems Motor Co. Peace.